Welcome to the IFD series product training videos. Hello, I'm Tom Harper with Avidyne. Today we're going to talk about flying with the Avidyne IFD, referencing the book by Michael F. Bauer. It's a great book for scenario-based training on the IFD series. The book is available on Amazon.com. I'd recommend while you're doing this training, try to follow along using either your IFD in demo mode or use the IFD Trainer app. That is available for free at the iTunes App Store. It emulates any of the IFD models, including those with and without VHF radio. Again, it's a free play simulator. It uses the actual certified code, so it behaves just like the panel-mounted unit. If you search IFD Trainer on YouTube, you'll see some tutorial videos on getting started with the simulator, but it's pretty straightforward. Our series of videos, we have 11 different sections in the video that line up pretty closely with the book, about 15 different videos broken down as you see here. It'll take you through basic product overview, how to use the radio, how to use the GPS, how to enter flight plans, some more advanced capabilities in terms of intercepting radials using OBS mode, rubber banding, holding patterns, instrument approaches, and then how to use some of the cool utilities that are available on the info tab and also in the pilot setting. With that, let's get to it. The IFD550 is an FMS GPS NavCom that is designed as a slide-in replacement for legacy GNS navigators. It comes from our full family of IFDs, including the IFD550 you see here, the IFD540, the IFD440, all of which have an integrated VHF NavCom. And then we have non-VHF NavCom versions or GPS-only versions, the 545, the 510, and the 410. Here we're looking at our premium top-of-the-line IFD 550. What makes it unique is it has a built-in attitude reference sensor that allows us to basically detect pitch and roll capability and gives us the ability to have an attitude indicator display. And you'll see here, obviously, it includes a synthetic vision display capability. All of our IFDs include what we call an exocentric synthetic vision, which is really a nice feature. Notice you get 3D traffic, you get 3D color contour terrain with terrain alerting capability. Also forward-looking terrain alerting, which is the projection you see there, the kind of the yellow flashlight beam. So it's a TAWS-like feature. Notice in the map you can see the runways, etc. Key features of this system, in addition to the synthetic vision, we've got a full touchscreen, which is very responsive. You can see here, I can pinch zoom. I can use the knobs and buttons as well. It's what we call hybrid touch. So you've got touch plus a full set of knobs and buttons. Virtually anything I can do on the touch, I can do on the knobs and buttons, and vice versa. Things like decluttering the map. If I scroll out here, you can see it can get kind of busy with Airways and airspace, etc. Over here on the nav, I can declutter either, again, by using the line select key or by using the touch. Bring everything back. Same with the land. I can delete the terrain. I can delete the political boundaries, or I can delete the water and terrain and everything. Bring it back. We have a weather overlay button for turning on your data link weather or your onboard radar. We have a hybrid touch user interface, and we also have this page and tab user interface, which is really nice. We have 4 main pages. Each of those pages has a specific set of tabs. In this case, we're on the map. You can see there's 4 tabs. These are 2-way rocker switches, so I can scroll between them by going left and right. See how I move in between tabs? I go to FMS. I can scroll between tabs, but because I have touchscreen, I can now just touch any one of those tabs and jump right to that page. So I can get to any page in 1 or 2 clicks. It's a significant time-saving advantage with our product. Dramatically reduces head down time,
You can get to the page you want. There's less nested menus. You don't have to try and remember where the heck was that one page that I really like. Everything's plainly labeled, and you can get to it in 1 or 2 clicks. Huge advantage. So with that, we'll go on to the next video and we'll talk about some of the other cool features. So part of our page and tab, we've got the page buttons, but we've also got line select keys down this side, and we've got dedicated function keys on this side. Here we've got the direct to button. It operates just like any legacy navigator. You hit direct to, you hit enter, and off you go. Enter and approve, and now you're going direct to. The procedure button, if you're going to an airport with a procedures, either departures or arrivals, you can select that. Let me just we'll go back to Colorado Springs. I get procedure. I'll get a full list of all the available approaches. You can select an approach. As you scroll through those approaches, notice you'll get what we call a procedure preview. You select the approved approach. Now it'll ask you what transition. Are you vectors, or are you going to, say, the initial approach fix in this case? And off you go. Now that whole approach has been loaded for you. The nearest button allows us to do a search in the database for nearby airports, VORs, NDBs, intersections. Simply push the nearest button and you'll get a full list of the nearest airports in their closest order. And you'll notice on the map, the little blue cyan color circle there shows us where it is in relation to our present position. So it makes it real easy to pick out a nearby airport that might work best in an emergency situation. You notice the comm frequency is highlighted. If I push this button, it'll automatically tune the comm frequency. I can hit direct to and fly direct to that airport. So it makes it super easy to get access to your nearest airports. The next button is your frequency button. That's frequency nomination. All your airports and en route frequencies are nominated based on where you are at the given time. At your departure airport, it'll give you a list of all your departure frequencies in the order you need them, pot, tower, ground. You simply touch the frequency, it'll transfer over, or you can use the knobs and transfer it that way. There's airport frequencies, the en route frequencies, flight service, center frequencies. Highlight it, transfer it into the standby window. Over on this side, we have our line select keys. So there's land. Again, we can declutter the map. We can declutter the nav overlay of intersections, of airways, etc. Get it down to just the basic flight plan. We can show our weather overlays. This knob is for tuning the radio. You got the megahertz and kilohertz. You got your USB port here if this is for loading your databases. Your flip-flop or frequency transfer button. Makes sense. And here's your volume for your comm. You can see the little indicator show up on the radio. And then this knob is your context-sensitive FMS knob. In this case, we're on map page, map tab. I can zoom with the knob, with the big knob, or I can change the view with the inner knob. In this case, if I push, right now we're in north up. If I push the button, I'm in a forward view, track up. If I push the button again, it's 360, track up. Push it again, it goes back to north up. If I were on another page, let's go to the chart. Now there's my chart page. Notice I can zoom and view. So I can zoom, or I can switch through the different views of the chart. In this case, I'm on an airport diagram, or I can select a chart. There's an approach chart. There's my hold. And there's my own ship. These are geo-reference charts. So it'll show where you're at in relation to a particular chart that you got displayed. We can go over to synthetic vision. We've got a 3D presentation of synthetic vision. This is an exocentric view where it's kind of behind your own ship. Notice the 3D traffic in view. The active leg is magenta. The next leg is magenta and white, kind of a candy cane. Here's on the FMS. We go to the SynVis page. Now we've got an egocentric out the window view of synthetic vision. Notice I can zoom in and out. I can see 3D traffic. If I had obstacles or terrain, that would show up as well. The field of view is showing up on the compass rose down here. So as I zoom in, it shows me how much of the field of view I have in play. Again, it's got an attitude reference sensor, so it's giving us pitch and roll. There's our pitch ladder. As you zoom, obviously it scales accordingly. And here's your roll pointer up here. The only other button I haven't talked about here is the CDI button in the upper right corner. That gives you the ability to switch from GPS mode to the VLOAD mode, so you can fly off the VOR. It gives you the ability to do that. You can also push and go to an OBS mode so that you can fly it in OBS. Notice our color contour terrain on the synthetic vision, and our FLTA, which is our forward-looking terrain alerting. It kind of has a flashlight beam that projects out in time 30 seconds and 45 seconds out, and a collision with the terrain is imminent. So it's a very helpful feature. There's also an audible alert that comes with that. So it's a very powerful and capable system. Has all the basic features of the legacy navigators you're used to. Plus, we've added a lot of significant features like hybrid touch capability, touchscreen, 3D synthetic vision, built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth we haven't even talked about yet, frequency nomination, all kinds of really nice features, electronic approach charts. So we'll delve into each of those a little more as we move through the lessons. In this video, we're going to talk about using the communication and navigation radios. For those of you following along at home, I'm using the book Flying with the Avidyne IFD by Michael Bauer. It's a nice lesson book that he's put together. He's a certified flight instructor and took the time to put together a nice book for us. And I'm going to use some of the scenarios that he's referencing there. It makes it easy to follow along. In this particular scenario, we're sitting on the ground at Melbourne Airport down here in Florida, and we want to fly home in our newly equipped IFD airplane, and we want to fly heading back to Chicago from Melbourne, but we're going to fly north to Ormond Beach VOR, and then from there we're going to fly to the St. Augustine VOR. And this will show you how to kind of tune the nav frequencies. For departing, the tower frequency at Melbourne is 118.2 and ground control is 121.9. So let's see how to put those in as well. Let's start with the COM frequencies. The nice thing about the IFD, it was designed specifically, so if you're coming from a legacy navigator like a GNS 530 or something, there are several functions that we've kept identical to the 530. So if you were to jump in the airplane unfamiliar with the IFD, you could still navigate, communicate, and fly direct to with the GPS. So all those behave exactly the way they do. So the knobs are in the same place, and they pretty much operate the exact same way. So with that in mind, let's load in our COM frequencies. We want the ground frequencies 121.9. The way you do that on a 530 is just the way you do it here. You can dial in 121.9, put that into the active window. Tower frequency is 118.2. So we come over here and dial in 118.2. Pretty straightforward, right? Just the way you're used to. Now, if we want to tune the nav frequencies, we're going to Ormond Beach VOR with OMN, which is 112.6. So we can come over here and just move our cursor down and notice a keyboard comes up. I can either type in 112.6 like you see here and transfer it in. And St. Augustine VOR is 109.4. I'll just touch it and I'll put it in using the keyboard so you can see the difference, 109.4. You don't need to put the trailing zero. It's smart enough to know. Interestingly, I'm going to go off frequency here on the COM for a minute. 123, enter. Notice I just put 123. If you enter a frequency, you don't even need to enter the leading one because it's smart enough to know the VHF range is in the 100 megahertz range. So if you wanted to put in 118.2, you could actually highlight that and put in 182, enter, and it does all the rest for you. So it's kind of handy. So that's one way, or two ways actually, to enter VHF frequencies into the COM and the nav. You've got the knobs like you're used to on the legacy systems, and you've got the number keypad. The third way is using the frequency button, where I could have just pulled that up and go over here. No, look, there's my Melbourne ground, double click. Now I've got ground, and then, oh look, here's Melbourne Tower, 118.2, they're in. So now I don't have to even manually turn the knob. So there's more than one way to skin the cat here. If we're going to fly the nav frequency, in this case, we're flying to Ormond Beach, we're currently in the GPS mode. Let's rotate this knob, and that'll put us in the VLOC mode. Since we're in the simulator mode, we're not receiving a live signal, it's going to be yellow. But if we were receiving a nav frequency, that would turn green. And then the IFD would self-identify. Once we start receiving 112.6, it'll listen to the Morse code, and it'll give you the identifier and what radial we're on. And using the GPS, it'll give you the distance. Obviously, we don't have a DME hooked up, but it would do that. Again, I'm not receiving a live signal, but that information would show up right there. So it's pretty clever. If you want to control the volume of the comm radio, just spin this knob right here. You can see your volume is set there. Of course, you'll hear it nice and fine. And you push to break squelch. So as you can see, there's multiple ways to tune the radios using the knobs and buttons, using the keyboard, using the frequency nomination button. Getting into nav mode, super easy. Tuning the radios is very similar to what you're used to, so not a lot of surprises here. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to do some simple flight plan concepts. If you're following along at home, we're using the Flying with the Avidyne IFD book written by Michael Bauer. I encourage you to check it out. What we're going to do is build a simple flight plan. We'll show you how easy it is to do that. In this particular scenario, Cessna 1234, you're cleared from the Chicago Executive Airport to Oshkosh Airport via the Badger VOR. Climb and maintain 4,000 squawk 1234. So we're at Chicago Executive and we want to go to Oshkosh. And so there's our clearance. So on the simulator, if you're playing along at home, you'd want to put in KPWK, Chicago Executive. If you were in the airplane, of course, when you start up in the morning, it's going to know that's where you're at and it'll start there. So here we are sitting on Chicago Executive. And again, our clearance is via the Badger VOR to Osh and to Oshkosh. What we want to do to build this flight plan, I'm going to use the FMS knob. You can use the enter button, but I like to use the FMS knob because when you're hanging onto it and flying, it kind of makes it handy. You can enter a lot of complex flight plans just by using this one knob. So I'm going to push the button. I always get a menu that pops up and gives me all the options. In this case, I can enter a waypoint, or I can enter one of the published departures out of Chicago Exec. In this case, I want to do Badger VOR, so that's a waypoint. It nominates Northbrook, but I'm going to put Badger in, which is BAE, and with geofill, it nominates, so you rarely have to spell out an entire waypoint. Enter that, so there's Badger. Now we're going to go to Osh, OSH, so we're going to, again, enter another waypoint. But notice off of Badger, it gives us all the different options. I could either enter a waypoint, I could hold at Badger, I could orbit it around Badger, or there's a bunch of airways that intersect it, which we're going to talk about later. For now, let's enter Osh. And it nominates Oshkosh. It's smart enough, geofill. And now we're going to enter our airport, which is K-Osh. So we go waypoint again. It nominates Kosh, which it's smart enough to do, and enter. There we go. That gives us our basic flight plan there. If I activate the first leg, now I've activated the flight plan, I'm off and running. So our origin airport is in blue. Our active leg is always in magenta. Any other downwind legs are in gray, and then our destination is always in blue. You'll notice there's a scroll bar here that's blue. That shows how much of the flight plan you've got in view, in this case, pretty much all of it. And the little magenta block shows where the active waypoint is in relation to the rest of the flight plan. In this case, it's a short flight plan. It's pretty obvious, but if you had a really long flight plan and you were scrolled to the bottom, the active flight plan might be way up high. This would give you a view of an indication of where to find that. Now that we've got our flight plan, let's go to the map page. Here we're on the map plan view. We can see our flight plan heading north, and you can see our entire flight plan. As we zoom out, we can go to and actually see our destination at Oshkosh. There it is. Or I can pan up there like this. You can zoom in. So right now our map is in the north up mode. If I push this button, the FMS button, of course I panned So when first time I push it, it centers me back up. I push it again, it goes from north up to a forward view, track up. If I push it again, it's a 360-degree view, track up. And if I push it again, it takes me back to north up. And there's the little north up indicator. If the north up indicator isn't there, it assumes you're in track up or you're in heading up. If you have a heading source coming in, then it would be heading up. Again, I can zoom in by pinching, or I can use the knob to zoom. And you saw that I can pan by touching, very responsive. You can see how the map can get kind of cluttered up. You can declutter the nav data by pushing the line select key, either the button or the touch. If I push the land button, I'll take away the terrain. I push it again, it'll take away the political boundaries, and that sort of thing. I hit it again, it'll take away the water. It'll have a black base map. And then back to the full screen. And then you also have a line select key for turning the weather the way on and off. On the right side over here, we see this, what we call a side tab that says data. I can reach up and touch that, and look, I've got all my data blocks pertinent to this flight. I can just get to that by touching that side tab. And remember, anything you can do on touch, you can do with the knobs and buttons. So I can push and hold this rocker and it'll pop out. If I push and hold it again, it'll go back away. So I can do, if it's turbulent, tough for me to aim, if I'm bouncing around, I've got a nice button I can kind of mash onto and feel it click under my finger. But the data blocks are fully customizable. You can put them in any order. Here in this case, we've got our next waypoint. We've got our nearest airports always in view with a radial and distance. Here's our destination always in view. Our minimum safe altitude for this trip. Ground speed, track, a little CDI, all kinds of things. And you can rearrange these in any order you want. We'll cover that in a different video. There's also a couple data blocks that are editable that are across the top for Zulu time, in this case, and AGL altitude. These little icons show whether your Wi-Fi is working. We'll talk about that in a later video as well. And you can also customize these data blocks over here. So there's our video of how to enter a simple flight plan and review the data and take off and fly it. Hi, this is Tom Harper with Avidyne. In this video, we're going to talk about changing flight plans on the IFD550. This also applies to the other IFDs in the family, the 540, the 440, etc. So let's jump right in here. In this case, we've got a scenario here. We're referencing the book Flying with the Avidyne IFD by Michael F. Bauer. I encourage you to check it out. It's got some nice scenario-based training that we're kind of using as a guideline here. In this case, there's a scenario where we're sitting at the St. Paul downtown airport and we're preparing for a trip to Chicago Midway. You receive the following clearance from Minneapolis clearance delivery. Cessna 1234, you are cleared from the St. Paul downtown airport to the Chicago Midway airport via the Press intersection to Nodine, to Lone Rock, to Madison, to Northbrook. Climb and maintain 5,000, squawk 1234. So let's enter that flight plan and then we'll do some editing, etc. So we're sitting on the ground at St. Paul downtown airport as it shows here. We're going to go to the Press intersection. So again, I like to use this FMS knob. There's a bunch of ways to do it. You can either touch the screen and bring up the waypoint menu, or you can touch the knob. And now we want to go to Press, P-R-E, and it nominates the rest, Press. And from there, we're cleared to the Nodine VOR ODI. So push the button, we get a menu. Select it again, and we're going to go to O-D-I. It nominates the rest. And now we're cleared from there to the Lone Rock VOR, Lima November Romeo. Select that, Lima, November, and there's Romeo entered. Next up is Northbrook VOR. It's OBK. There it is. And finally, we're going to go to Midway, which is KMDW. KMDW. GeoFill fills it in for us. And there's our flight plan. So if we activate that flight plan, now we're flying along. Again, here's our origin airport is in blue. Our active waypoint is in magenta. Our downstream waypoints are in gray, and our destination is in blue. Notice I've scrolled the flight plan off the page. So now I'm viewing this much of the flight plan, but the flight plan's that long, and my active waypoint is up there off the screen. That's what that little scroll bar shows. You see there now the active waypoint's kind of right in the middle of the page. Makes it really handy to kind of, from an orientation point of view, to see what you're looking at. So one of the ways you can check your flight plan is we come over here and notice our side tab. It says map. Again, I can touch it, and now I can see the flight plan and the map at the same time. And again, that's the side tab. It says map, and when you hit it again, it says to take me back to flight plan. I can also click and hold this button if I want to use buttons instead of touch, and if I click and hold it, it'll bring it back to flight plan. If I click and hold it, it'll take me to the map, split screen. Now I'm going to take this line select key that says expanded, and if I hit it, it'll take me to what's called view cursor. And now it's going to center the map around whichever waypoint I've got highlighted. So as I scroll through the list, I can review my entire flight plan. See how it says cursor centered? I can scroll through the flight plan and view all of my waypoints and say, yeah, that looks good. It's a nice way to kind of skip through and make sure you've got what you're expecting and what you entered. So now let's say we want to go direct to a waypoint that's already in our flight plan. In this example, the scenarios, we're cruising along and all of a sudden ATC says, Cessna 1234, you're cleared direct to Madison. Well, if we scroll down, Madison is in our flight plan right here. I can just touch the waypoint, or again, I can just use my knob and scroll down, this outer knob, touch that waypoint, hit the direct to, and it'll nominate it. And now I hit enter, and then it says to activate, go direct, now there. Now we've skipped all this part of the flight plan and we're going direct Madison, and then we'll reconnect into Northbrook, etc. So what if we want to go direct to a waypoint that's not in our flight plan? In this case, we get a call from ATC that says Cessna 1234, previous traffic reports, convective activity building between you and Madison. Turn left 20 degrees and proceed direct to the Volk VOR when able. So now what we want to do is we want to go direct to Volk VOR, and it's not in the flight plan, so we can just hit direct to, and instead of Madison, we just touch the button or touch the field. And now we can type in Volk, and of course it's going to nominate it because it knows it's nearby, and hit enter and activate. Now we're going direct to the Volk VOR and kind of ignoring our flight plan. So it's pretty easy to enter a waypoint or go direct to a waypoint that's not in the flight plan. So now we're going direct to the Volk VOR. Now you'll notice we have a gap in our flight plan because we haven't given the FMS instruction on how to get us back on track once we get to Volk. Let's assume for a minute, we acknowledge there's this gap and we want to solve that. So let's call ATC and we'll say Center Cessna 1234 requests direct Madison after Volk. ATC replies Cessna 1234 after Volk, clear direct Madison. So okay, now all we have to do is close that gap. A couple ways we can do that. We can either scroll down over it and hit the clear button, or if you notice when we highlight it, it'll tell us we can connect Volk with Madison. So we'll just do that. And now they're connected and we'll just fly right back on track to Madison as we were going to go. So what if we want to add a waypoint into our existing flight plan? How would we do that? Here's a scenario where we get a instruction from ATC, Cessna 1234, Chicago approach will not accept you on your current routing. After Madison, you're cleared direct Janesville, direct Northbrook as filed. So after Madison, we need to go to the Janesville VOR instead. So we need to add a waypoint to our flight plan. So between Madison and Northbrook, notice this is an edit cursor, this is an insert cursor. So it's between the two waypoints. We always know if we're going to enter a waypoint, if it's where it's going to land. Unlike the old legacy systems where you highlight over a waypoint, you didn't know if the waypoint was going to go in after it or before it. We make it nice and simple with the insert cursor. So what do we do next? We push the FMS button. That's going to give us our menu. And it tells us all the things we can do at that point in the flight plan. We can enter a waypoint. We can hold at Madison, either a standard hold or an orbit, or there's a bunch of airways that connect. We're not going to do any of that. We're simply going to enter Janesville by pushing the button again. We're going to enter a waypoint, and it's JVL. And I type the J, and it gives me JVL because of geofill. And now we've added a waypoint to our flight plan, and we're just going to continue trucking along. So now let's talk about how we delete a waypoint. So now let's see what happens if ATC calls and says Cessna 1234, Chicago approach, change their minds. After Madison, you're cleared direct Northbrook as filed. What we want to do is we want to eliminate Janesville. So we highlight over it. And again, we can hit either clear, or as it says right here in what we call the butler, we can delete the waypoint. So let's just do that. And now we've deleted the waypoint. It's simple. So let's try another trick, editing flight plans. Let's change our destination airport. Instead of going to Midway, in this case, what happens? ATC calls and says Cessna 1234, Chicago approach, reports heavy thunderstorms at Midway Airport. No traffic is currently getting in. Expect extensive holding until the airport reopens. You reply back to ATC, Cessna 1234, request diversion to the Janesville Airport. We'll wait it out on the ground. So now what we're going to do is we want to put in Janesville Airport as our destination. So let's scroll down past Midway, get our insert cursor, push the FMS button. I want to enter a waypoint. Again, I want to enter Janesville, so I type KJVL, Janesville. Now we've added Janesville as our airport of record. We're cleared direct to Janesville, so we'll just highlight it, hit direct to, enter, and go. So now we're cleared to Janesville, where we'll sit and wait it out until the weather gets better. So you can see with the IFD550, or any of the IFDs for that matter, it's very easy to enter a flight plan. It's very easy to edit a flight plan, to go direct to a waypoint within the flight plan, direct to a waypoint not in the flight plan, and to add and delete flight plans, and in this case, edit or change your destination. So it's very easy to use the IFD550. There's a lot of more powerful features that it has that we'll be showing you in future videos, so hope you come back. Thanks. Hi, this is Tom Harper with Avidyne, and today we're going to talk about advanced flight plans, specifically adding Airways to flight plans, referencing the book Flying with the Avidyne IFD by Michael F. Bauer. I encourage you to check into that. It's a nice scenario-based booklet we're referencing here for these scenarios. In this particular scenario, we're at downtown St. Paul Airport, preparing for a trip to Chicago Midway, and I received the following clearance. Minneapolis clearance delivery. Cessna 1234, you're cleared from St. Paul Downtown Airport to Chicago Midway via the press intersection, Victor 2 to Madison, Victor 228 to Northbrook, climb and maintain 5,000, squawk 1234. So now let's enter that flight plan with a couple of Victor Airways into the IFD550, and I'll show you how easy it is. When you start up the IFD, in your airplane, you'll see that it knows you're at STP. If you're using your simulator, you would have to manually enter that origin. So first thing we want to do is we're cleared to the press intersection. So using our FMS button, push the button. Again, it gives us a whole menu of options. Of course, we want to enter a waypoint, in this case press, so we touch that. P, R, E. Geofill fills in the rest for us. We accept it. Now we're at press. Now we're clear on the Victor 2 to Madison. So if we push the FMS button again, we'll get our FMS menu. Again, we can enter a waypoint. We can hold at press or orbit, or we can enter one of the airways that intersects press. In this case, we want the Victor 2, which happens to be the first one. So I'll just scroll down. There's the Victor 2. I select it, and we're getting off. It's asking what our exit point is. And it's we're cleared to Madison. So we'll scroll up. Notice it goes that way. If I scroll down, it goes the other way. And there's Madison. So notice as I was scrolling, see how it's going backwards, but notice as I'm scrolling, it's building out our airway. And we're cleared all the way to Madison. So we approve that. So now that entire Victor airway, Victor 2, see how it says it's vertically there? All of those waypoints were entered. Remember your old 430 where you had to manually enter all those and spell them right? So you'd spent 15 minutes loading all those. So from there, we're cleared on Victor 228 to Northbrook. So now when we push the FMS button again, we can enter any waypoint. We can hold at that waypoint, or we can jump on any airway passing through Madison, in this case 228. Well, there's the Victor 177, there's Victor 2 that keeps going north, and there's 228. That's the one we want. We select it. And we're cleared to OBK. You can see it right there. Scroll down, it built it out on our airway preview. So now there's the whole Victor 228. And then what's next is our destination, which is Midway. So we push the button. In this case, we want to enter our waypoint. And we type in KM for Midway, and off we go. So now there's our entire flight plan. Scroll up. If you remember, like we've done before, if you switch to the view cursor, now if you scroll the knob, it'll take you through, it'll center the flight plan over each waypoint. In this case, I'm going backwards, but you get the idea. If I scroll all the way to the top, I can step through every waypoint in the flight plan and see how it kind of filters through with the cursor centered mode. So let's turn that off. Notice how it's got, I'm in the compact view now. So now it says, just like my clearance was given to me, I'm Minneapolis, St. Paul to Press intersection, Victor 2 to Madison, Victor 228 to Northbrook, on to Midway. It spells it right out there, nice clearance form. If you hit expand, then you can see all of the waypoints in that entire flight plan, and there's quite a few of them. So you can see it's really easy to enter Airways using the IFD550 or the 440 for that matter. It operates identically. Very easy, intuitive. You've got a simple menu. It asks you which Victor airway you want, where do you want, what's your exit point, and it'll enter all those waypoints for you. If we pop out the side tab, you get a little more information on each waypoint. And again, if I go to the compacted view, it's a nice compact version in clearance format. Next, we'll look at some standard arrivals and departures and how to enter those.
That covers the IFD550 basics lessons. In the next video, we will cover IFD Advanced and all of those lessons associated with the advanced operation of the IFD550. Be sure to join us then.